Welcome to the Diesel Performance Podcast. This is Justin Tyson.
And Chris Empty.
And as you're probably aware, Paul is not here. He's probably celebrating the 4th. Chris, do we have any idea what he's doing?
No.
Yeah, no idea. We have no idea what Paul's doing. But, you know, I'm sure none of you miss his voice. I know Chris definitely doesn't. But it'll be nice to take a break. But anyway, we also are joined by a gentleman that works with us that is a diesel enthusiast to the max. Chris, he's like a little brother to you. Let's talk to him. Who is it?
Oh, man. So we have Anthony Bruneni. Anthony's been with us over at the shop now for a few years. He started off as kind of like a customer support guy, and now he's in a sales role in the organization. He's had a couple cool Duramaxes over the years. So, Anthony, how are you, man?
Dude, I'm good. It only took 3 years before I got on a podcast. I'm pretty stoked about it.
Man, Anthony's one of those guys that when he gets put into an odd situation or like a new situation that, you know, he has looked up to for some time, he gets really sweaty palms. So, Justin, you should check his palms.
They are extremely red.
Yeah.
Like, he literally held them up, and I'm like, damn, dude.
You can see the sweat glisten off him. Just a little nervous.
So, Anthony, tell me a little, let's do a little background here. When you first started with us a few years back, you had a Duramax. What was that truck?
That truck was an 03 LB7 that I bought off a friend of a friend. And, I mean, it was like a solid beginner truck. Like, it had the rockers are rusted out, you know, cab corners. It had high mileage. It was everybody's first LB7 if you've owned one. At that point, I was really just starting to get in the diesel game. So, you know, I had friends. They had diesel trucks, and they're like, dude, you got to get into these trucks. I mean, we had a shit ton of fun on them. Bought my own, and then I just came to realize what everything entails. You know, you talk about injectors, turbochargers, things like that, and just slowly started making my way into the industry.
Okay. Over the course of you working over at Calibrated Power, what were some of the upgrades you did to that truck?
The truck, I mean, pretty much came in just stock. One of my first few days there, Nick was like, boom, let's get this thing tuned. So pulled the ECM, had actually Justin flashed it for me, I'm pretty sure.
Dude, yeah, old school.
Back when you were in tuning. And from there, it was just, I ran on the tune, 230,000 miles on a stock trans. It was only a matter of time before I put one of those in there. So DJ did kind of it was right before we released like the 550 build, so he kind of did a prototype 550 for me. And then, I mean, I had big plans for the truck, but it was kind of old. It was beat up, so I wanted to invest in something a little bit newer. But I mean, the truck built trans, stock turbo, stock injectors, like that was a lot of fun for a 530 horse truck.
Don't get him wrong either. This guy, it was beat, but he loved that truck, Chris. Like, we could tell he loved that truck.
Yeah, no, I remember being in the shop, washing my vehicle, and he'd be washing the rust. It was so. We'll fast forward. Last year, you and I went on a little road trip, and what's the truck that we're going to be in conversation about today?
That is now my 05 LOY. It was ever since I was a kid. Like, quick background, my dad's always had red vehicles. Like, he had 2 red Trans Ams, so like red was the color for me. And I know you were helping me for a while, and everyone here knows it had to be either like a VVT truck, so an LOY or an LBZ. It had to be crew cab and red. And then, I think we were hanging out, and you told me, hey, I got this guy in Marketplace selling a red LOY with relatively low miles. And we took like a 4-hour trip to go pick up the truck, and I feel like, the rest is history. We're at where we are now with the truck.
Okay. So for guys that are ever looking at a used truck, I think there's a couple key points that I remember in that sales ad. Fresh head gaskets with ARP head studs, some other minor upgrades. But the head studs and head gaskets, that was a big one, if I recall, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So the guy, he used the truck. He went on family trips with an RV. It had a fifth wheel and stuff like that. And he upgraded to a newer 4th Gen Dodge. Mm-hmm. So he was and looking to get rid of the truck. And it was a really pretty truck. Like, it showed well in person. It drove really nicely. Like, you could tell, like, it was a good buy for what we were getting at that point.
Yeah, and I feel like the guy was really stand up about it, which is, anyone who's bought vehicles off of, whether you're on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, everybody knows what buying a used truck is like. And I feel like it was really refreshing for both of us where, you know, we were asking questions like, and the guy's like, hey, it's got rust spots. Like, I've never taken the flares off, but it should be solid. You know, I did a lot of towing with it. So it was nice having like a stand-up guy about the truck too.
Yeah. At the same time, he was a DIY guy, so he did the upgrades and repairs himself, which at the time, you know, there were no issues with the truck mechanically. So fast forward a year, you know, we'll talk about the first winter that you had the truck. I mean, what were some of the issues that you experienced with the truck? Now, you didn't drive it a lot in the winter, if you did at all. But what would happen with the truck when you would start it up and move it around and whatnot?
So what I noticed, like I had the truck over the winter because we were doing, like, it got a trans put in it. So, I mean...
That was after we were using it for that course, right?
Yeah, so...
Nick shredded it.
Yeah, on the... it was... So Nick has his HP Academy videos that he does, and I think you probably know a little bit better than I do, Justin. They had was it for the older trucks or
yeah, we were doing recording. Nick was teaching. Essentially, Nick is doing a class online through HP Academy. Really awesome stuff. We've been filming. Paul and I've been filming for them with Nick. Check it out if you want to learn about tuning. But yeah, Anthony essentially was nice enough to let his truck be used, and literally the looks on Nick's face when it would shift on the dyno were of absolute horror.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And Nick used it for the HP Academy, and I mean, you know, we've all been around the game long enough. You have a truck with, you know, a few 100,000 miles, and we're all enthusiasts. We want performance out of these. A trans was definitely in the picture. So, I mean, I knew the motor had studs on it, so I had confidence that, you know, head gaskets were going to be in good shape. We weren't going to have any issues there. I mean, 130,000 miles, that's relatively low in my opinion for an 05. So, got the truck back. DJ put a trans in it. And then from there, when I'd move it from time to time, extended cranks, that was the first thing I noticed. And, you know, your training kicks in, being around these for years and years. Prime the filter head because the truck doesn't have a lift pump on there. It has a rail plug. I mean, really, that was it, a built trans and a rail plug at the time. And so I just primed the filter head. I noticed it wasn't keeping primed, so I noticed, like, right off the bat, that was one of the first things. The filter head started to, you know, I think it was leaking past the gaskets or getting the air in the system.
Yeah. And this is a story we hear a lot, right? Every time someone picks up something, no matter how, you know, when you want to add power, like, it's one of those, it's the same old diesel story, right?
Yeah.
There's always something behind the scenes.
Exactly.
So you do all that stuff over the course of the winter. Now we'll fast forward to, you know, where we're at now. You started running into injector issues.
Yeah, that was one of those. So yeah, driving it, I mean, really in the summertime, that's kind of like the main commuter. I've got a little S10 that I got from you, and that one's fun to drive in the wintertime. But, you know, I want to have the nice truck out when it's sunny out, windows down, things like that. And I started to notice excessive hazing. Especially, you know, like at stoplights and things like that. And I was going through quite a bit of fuel, a little bit more. Like my mileage was like 11, 12 miles a gallon. Other side of that was that, you know, we always talk about balance rates. You know, I get calls, I mean, you do too, Chris, every single day about balance rates. I mean, granted, that doesn't always tell the story, but I feel like this was a key indicator. You know, I had haze, I had extended crank sometimes, and then my balance rates were like -5, -9, I think was the most I ever saw. And I mean, they were bouncing all over the place. So, and that's when I gave Harvey a call at Exergy, and we got some Sportsman's headed my way.
Shout out to Exergy.
So we grouped an Exergy on this. We ordered a set of Sportsmen. And this was supposed to be like a Friday, Thursday evening, pull out injectors and swap out injectors, right?
Yeah, it was a plan of, you know, I was talking with DJ, or lead tech and trans builder here, and I was like, hey, man, you know, I'd got the injectors. I know we had the gaskets around the shop. And I was like, well, you know, when can we get this in? He's like, oh, dude, no problem. You know, I was thinking, oh, I got dinner plans with some friends. I'll be driving home in a few hours, you know, knock it out by dinner time. And next thing you know, I run to the store, come back, and my motor's on a stand. So it took a turn for the worse, to say the least.
Well, how did you feel when you saw that?
I mean, you always have the sticker shock of, holy shit, my motor's out of the truck.
Yeah.
Where's my injectors at? But it's a matter of, you know, like, we've known DJ for years. Chris has since he was, you know, growing up.
Yeah.
But, you know, DJ builds a transit. He's a lead tech, and he's that for a reason. And what ended up coming about was, I mean, he had the top end of the motor apart, like he's taking the valve covers off and whatnot, or the uppers at least. And he had 6 injectors out. He's like, hey, these 2 are kind of giving me some fits. You know, I'm going to have a little more time into it because, you know, I was here with him, seeing how everything was going. And I was like, no big deal. You know, do what you got to do. And, I mean, we had slide hammers. We had pry bars. Like, you know, we were getting a little aggressive because it's either we get the injectors out or the motor comes out.
Yeah.
So it ended up being worst case scenario. Like we get guys in for head gasket jobs, and you tell them like, hey, the motor's going to be out. This is how we do it. I would advise doing injectors or a pump if you have higher mileage, things like that. So it was a matter of he's like, I got to pull the motor, and I was like, oh shit. But I trust DJ. I trust the technicians here. We had another, Jeremy was in the shop. He's like, yeah, he even tried. He's like, my tips and tricks aren't working. It was a little bit more in depth than I planned originally, but yeah.
Yeah, you could check that on our Instagram. I think Chris has seen it. Anthony, you shot him over to me. We posted on our Instagram, kind of telling a little snippet of what to expect sometimes, because there's always the unexpected when it comes to diesel stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Well, the thing that I want to take from where we're at so far in the conversation or in the story is the gentleman that sold the truck to Anthony was a DIY guy, and he not necessarily did the installing correctly, but doing the installation or the reinstallation of the injectors, they weren't seating properly, and that's what caused seize to take place to make the injector stay in the head, which then called to have the engine come out of the truck. Now, another thing that we see a lot, and it's not, it's not that it happens all the time here at the shop, but I hear of guys all over the country call in, and the story starts off with, well, I took my truck into the shop to do a set of injectors, and now they're telling me that this is wrong and that is wrong, and they thought, a $3,000-$4,000 injector job. Well, now it turned into an $8,000 or $9,000 head gasket and stud job, and, while you're there, you can do this and that. So, Anthony, the motor comes out of the truck. You can't still get, the injectors out of the head. Where are you at this point in time with the project that was supposed to originally be one day?
Yeah, so where the truck's at right now is, so we ended up getting, when DJ got the motor on the stand, or I should have backtracked for a second. You're talking about the DIY side of things. And what we noticed is, what we saw is studs on the manifold. Instead of having the proper bolts, he had longer studs. Like there were bolts, certain things were loose that shouldn't be. So whether he did it or a shop did it, whatever the scenario is, it's one of those, you got to make sure you have an expert doing this. I mean, you can save money with the DIY. Yes, taking it to a shop such as us is going to be a little bit more expensive, but you have that extra peace of mind. But so motor's on a stand. We got one of the injectors out, and I want to say the last one was on the passenger side, stuck in the head. So what ended up happening, he's like, I got to pull the heads off, so, now I'm in for head gaskets. But DJ took the heads off. He ended up having to turn the head upside down, put it in a press, and actually press the injector out because it was so seized, like no amount of slide hammers, no amount of, manpower was able to get it out, so it ended up having to get pushed out of the head with a press.
So work.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, fast forward for a quick second, then we have a local machine shop here, Pfeiffer's, who does all of our work. And, I dropped the heads off. I was like, hey, I know there's a bent valve because DJ bent a valve getting it out. And I was like, hey, just want to, have everything gone through, pressure test them, boil them, mill them, whatever you have to do, and then fix the valve. Really check out these 4 valves. That's what we know is bad. And then, next thing I know, I get a call from Pfeiffer's, and it's like, hey, your heads are kind of shot. You need, new valves, seals, guides, everything like that. So that was quite the hit for sure, too.
So now it's sitting in the back. That's why it's back there.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, that's...
I guess one thing that I want to kind of just sum up here, because we've gone over so many things, is, again, to the guy that goes and does an injector job, where injectors on these trucks are expensive. They're going to run you a few $1,000s, right? Anthony, how much money would you say we're wrapped up into this truck when it's all said and done? Closer to like $7,000 to $8,000. If you cut the turbo out of the equation, you do the injection pump, the injectors, the head gaskets. You already had studs, but if you do studs, labor, heads, the whole 9 yards. Again, a $3,000-$4,000 job is 2.5 times that.
Yeah. Like the injectors, I want to say retailing for a set of LOYs is just a shade over $3,000 for a set of Sportsman's from Exergy. And, you're in there, $1,200 for core. So, right there, you're over $4,000 into those components, not to mention the labor to get that done. So, just an injector job on parts is going to be, $4,200 with core. And then now at the point where I'm at, I'm injectors. I'm a few bolts away from a pump, a few bolts away from a charger. I might as well do these upgrades while I'm in as well.
Yeah. That's the thing, though, right, Chris? When we're going to shout out Exergy here, essentially, I've been there. Chris has dealt with them forever now. It's one of those things where they're so professional in what they do, the cleaning, the testing, everything like that. You know what you're going to get when you purchase that. and you do that upgrade.
Yeah.
There's a reason we always use them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, more specifically, too, to take away at this is, with a company like Exergy and their professionalism, like you said, and I think, the quality that you're getting, this is a lot of money and a lot of time that's being invested into this truck to get it back on the road. You can't rush.
Yeah.
You can't rush this stuff. And I see guys in these situations, they'll cut a corner and go a cheaper route on one component because more things came at them, where now it's not just injectors. Now it's injectors and a head gasket, a CP3, and, having the heads prepped and gone through. Well, where can I cut corners because I need the truck back on the road? Sometimes it's better just to pump the brakes, let the truck sit, accumulate a couple more bucks, and do it right one time, because that one time of doing it right, taking a little extra time to make that happen, is going to save you a lot of money.
That's great advice.
In the long run.
Yeah.
So you always want to look at the grand scheme of things here, and not everything goes as planned. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to this stuff. Everything is mechanical. One thing's for sure, though, Anthony, you're going to have a pretty badass truck when things all back together.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. What's next? So when you get the engine back, you're putting a Stealth on?
Yeah. Chat with Nick. We're going to do a 67 on my truck. So, it's going to have the Sportsman injectors, pump, 67, a little bit bigger for kind of that setup, but it's one of those, I want to see what the Charger can make, stock setup, things like that, put it on the dyno, make some numbers, and just kind of improve on drivability.
What transmission you got in there, 550 or 750?
750.
750?
Mm-hmm.
Chris, by the way, do you want to talk about what's going on right now with Duramaxtuner with transmissions?
Yeah, that's a nice segue. So for the month of July, us over at Duramaxtuner Calibrated Power has been, thinking about, what would be a really big impact for a sale for the month. And what we've come up with for the month of July, so for the whole month of July, we are doing $400 off of our DT transmission program. So a DT 550, a DT 750, or, even our DT 1000, we're doing $400 off of the retail cost. We have transmissions of all make and models for all the RPOs on the shelf, ready to ship. If you have an 01 to 05 truck, we can even do a 6-speed conversion prior to shipping out the trans to you. So there's a lot of cool options there that are available. But it's only for the month of July, $400 off. We can set up freight and get the trans shipped out to you, get your core shipped back to us, so we can, arrange and get all of that set up. So if you guys have any questions, feel free. You can reach me. My number over at the shop, 815-568-7920, extension 2121, or maybe you want to chat with Anthony, same main line number, and then his extension 2126.
27.
27, so 2127 for Anthony. So if you guys, like I said, have any questions or interest in transmissions, we have a lot of different options. We have, we've been working on that program for a lot of years, so I think, we've honed in on our craft and what we can offer on those transmissions to, really offer you a trans that can not only support the power and retain drivability, but it's going to last a real long time. So you're investing your money into something that, is going to be able to back it up. It's not just an added cost that will only last a year or two.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to add, Anthony, about your truck or anything before we?
I should say only last thing was Chris mentioned the 6-speed conversion real quick.
Yes.
I have the 750 built trans with a conversion kit.
Okay.
A complete, it changes the drivability. It's so nice on the truck, especially guys who do a lot of highway driving. I know having a 5-speed, regardless of what tire size, you want to do 70, 75 on the highway, you're like 2,200 RPM. Like the truck's just singing.
Yeah.
On my truck, I don't see 2,000 RPMs till about 80 miles an hour.
Damn.
When I'm in Mexico, of course. And just as far as like drivability goes, you do built trans on a 5-speed truck with that conversion kit, like it changes drivability. It's very nice.
Good call. I keep forgetting that he has that on there. You had it on the LB7 too, right?
Yeah, both my trucks.
Yeah, so you definitely know what's up. Also, we used that old truck to test test it out on there.
Exactly.
So, Chris, one more thing we're forgetting to shout out is WC Fab. So, why don't you give one out there for him?
And guys, the other sponsor of the show, WC Fab. If you have any interest or concerns or questions on powder coating or intercooler piping, turbo kits, twin turbo kits, triple turbo kits, coolant hoses, coolant tanks, traction bars. Justin, I'm pretty sure I'm missing a couple things here with what the boys over at WC Fab do. They're all works of art, though, to say the least. So, if you guys have any, you want to sprucing up your truck or, make anything look a little, shine up that truck, I guess you would say, go look over at WCFab.com. So that's WCFab.com.
He's right. They do it all, literally. We can't even remember half the things.
No.
Dude, for real. But anyways, we know that you probably do kind of miss Paul's voice, so no longer waiting. Not speaking for Chris. Just kidding, Paul. We miss you. But I heard that. But anyways, we got Erik Hallen, and he's going to be talking about his Cummins with Paul. And I know what you're all probably thinking, a 5.9. It is not. It's a 2014 6.7. It's pretty interesting, so let's kick it over to Paul and Erik and see what they got to say about the truck.
All right, guys, and now it's time for one of our favorite parts of the show. That's where you, the listeners, get to come on the show, talk about your trucks, talk about your builds, and go through just kind of sharing some of your experiences. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Erik Hallen. Erik, how the hell are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you guys' self?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for asking. And really, thank you for coming on the show and talking about your truck. I thought this would be kind of a cool one. I know a lot of times on the show, we talk about Cummins builds, and they all seem to be third-gen trucks. Just so many 5.9s out there. That's why, guys like Chris Patterson, no, it's just another Cummins. But you have a little bit different of a setup, and I wanted to talk to you about it today. So you have a 14 Ram with a mega cab 6.7, and we've got them. I think the beginnings of a real cool build here, and we're going to get to that truck. But get us started, man. How did you get your beginning in diesel performance?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the first time I ever seen a diesel truck kind of like, I guess at the track or that was going fast and kicking people's butts was when I was in high school. So I grew up on the East Coast in Maryland, and Budds Creek was the raceway. I think this is before it was actually MIR, Maryland International Raceway. And there was a guy out there with a 2002 second gen, and he had that thing souped up. I mean, it had a big old turbo before I knew anything about, the diesel performance game. And he was just out there smoking people. And that kind of really opened my eyes to it.
That's so cool.
So
I love being at the track, and the track announcers are always some of my favorite types of people, where just the things that they'll say to a large audience always cracks me up. And every time you're at the track and you're like the only truck there with a diesel, they're blown away. They act like they've never seen it before. They had no idea it was coming. Like, they're always just flabbergasted by the concept of a truck that can tow a trailer also going fast on the track.
Yeah, you can kind of tell, like, if they know exactly what they're talking about when it comes to whatever kind of vehicle is going on the track.
I love it. Love it. Well, cool, man. All right. Well, hey, let's dive into this 14 mega cab. Walk us through. So how long have you had it, and what have you done to it?
So I got the truck back in November of 2017. I found it on Facebook Marketplace. I had a Ram before. I had a 2013, and I made the mistake of getting rid of that to try to save a little money, and I instantly regretted it. So when I found this truck, I kind of convinced the wife to let me, get it. And I had a Harley and an F-150 at the time, and so I had to sell both of those. And in November, it's not the prime time to sell the Harley, you know what I mean? So I sold those. We pulled the trigger on the truck, and what I got was an incredible truck that was meticulously taken care of by a guy that I know, that I still keep in contact with to this day. And the truck just pretty much had the aesthetics. It had the lift wheels and tires, a tonneau cover, and other than that, it was clean. She only had 16,000 miles on it when I got it, and it was already a 3 or 4 year old truck. So
wow,
got a pretty good deal on it.
Okay. So you got it. It was bone stock, right?
It was bone stock under the hood, yes, but all the expensive, pretty stuff that on the outside that everybody sees was already done. So I was like, awesome, this is great for me. So I can now mess with the performance stuff.
Sure.
So.
Okay, man, dive in. What was the first thing you did to it?
Well, the first thing I did was a tuner, the basic stage one, I guess you could call, of a build, right? I did the deletes. I bought the 5-inch straight, or turbo back exhaust. And then I did the EGR delete later on down the road. I've never did a tuner on any vehicle I've ever owned before, and I've had quite a few because I was always scared of those, messing something up or having a crappy tuner or not having the support to back you up when something does go wrong. So
Sure.
it took me a while to pull the trigger on that. I did it, and it instantly woke the truck up like tenfold. And I'll tell you right now, that was kind of the first big performance mod I've ever done to any vehicle. I've done cold air intakes. I've done like an exhaust, like a bolt-on Banks exhaust on my F-150s. But this was actually the very first thing or very first vehicle I've actually torn apart, got my hands dirty, and did it all myself. So still a work in progress, but just did the basic MM3 tuner with some custom tunes. I did the 5-inch turbo back Flow Pro exhaust with no muffler at the time, and just a basic DRP EGR
Sure.
Elite kit.
Okay. Well, that's. I mean, it feels like a brand new truck after doing that list. I mean, I know that's like you said, our entry level or kind of our stage one that everybody. Well, now I guess we could say everybody used to do. So it feels like a brand new truck. So you're driving it, and how do you use the truck? What's its purpose?
This is strictly a daily driver for me. There is no racing. There is no hauling, towing, or anything. I mean, this is a dream truck of mine that I've always wanted, and I finally got it. And it's just a daily driver, I'm in the military. I deploy a lot, and for the time that I'm gone, the truck would sit for a month or so at a time. And just, it still has low miles on it. I just rolled 35,000 miles on it. So
Jesus.
She's a baby. She's what you typically, a lot of people say, a mall crawler, I guess.
Sure. Well, the scary thing is it's getting old at this point.
It is, which is unfortunate, but
it's a 6-year-old truck. I mean, if you figure dog years, I mean, that your truck's like already at its midlife crisis. You got to be getting ready for a new one, no?
I know, and that's what everybody says, and everybody's like, man, you still have that same truck. This is the longest vehicle I've had, I guess, since I've met my wife, back in 2013. I've always had a new vehicle every year and a half, 2 years, and this is the longest I've ever had one. So I plan on keeping this one for a while.
Now you've also done you mentioned a lot of the accessories and things were already done on it. So the truck has a 6-inch lift. You got the Fox shocks in there. What are some of the other things that you kind of do that, like I call all accessory upgrades?
You mean like aesthetics, or do you mean?
Well, sure. Well,
so I mean, I can talk about the engine, or I can talk about headlights, whatever you want to talk about.
Let's walk around the outside of the truck first. What's done to the outside of the truck that's not performance based right now? Okay.
Well, she's obviously she's D-badge. She's a slick looking truck. There's not even a Cummins emblem on there like a lot of people like to see on there. She's paint corrected, ceramic coated. And then if we're going to talk about the lift, it's a 6-inch BDS long arm lift with the dual shock hoop up front. I'm running Fox 2.0s on the front and rear. And then I also have the BDS steering stabilizer kit. She rides freaking phenomenal for a big truck and that setup. So,
well, let me give you some pushback there. I love, because I was just going to ask, how's it drive? Because I'll just be honest with everyone. Every truck I've driven with a 6-inch lift, I thought drove like shit. I thought it bounced around. I thought it was hard. I thought the steering sucked. I thought it rode like shit. But I always hear guys say, oh, but I have the Fox shocks, or I have the dual hooper. Oh no, I got a BDS long arm lift. Like I did this thing and now it's good. Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, you take it for granted, right? It's a 3/4 ton truck and it's not loaded. So the roads in Oklahoma here are just hammered dog shit. They're terrible. So I look at it this way. You got to expect reality when you have a lifted truck. I mean, I'm not sitting here driving a Cadillac Escalade on airbags. You know what I mean? I'm driving a 3/4 ton pickup. I'm a realist, I guess you could say.
I like that.
My wife says it rides rough. I think it rides pretty good. But I've always had pickups that have been lifted or whatever the case may be. So
how about steering? Is the steering real loose? Does it get wobbly at 80, 90 miles an hour?
Not at all, man. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say my truck's the greatest thing ever, but I drive it on the highway from time to time, not a lot, but the steering is still tight. I'm honestly, like you said earlier, my truck's old. It's a 14. It was built in August of 13. So I know the components are starting to wear down. But I've every time I drive it, I'm listening for creaks. I'm listening for pops, sounds, or things that are wore out, and see how much play I have in my steering wheel. And I don't. I do have a little bit of a pop when I first I guess, back out of the driveway and go straight. But after that, it doesn't happen anymore. So I had when the guys did the gears on it, I had them look under there really in depth to see if they could find anything, and they couldn't. So
Gotcha.
I'm still trying to chase that little, I guess, rattle, if you could say.
Good. Okay. All right. I'm sorry I interrupted you there. I think we're about to jump into some of the other accessories you have for the truck.
Okay. Yeah. For the outside of the truck, we'll finish with the wheels and tire setup. I have a 22 by 11 inch American Force offset wheel. It's a zero offset, which not a lot of people see. It's pretty rare. A lot of people have the big lips and things like that.
Yeah.
This is pretty much just a 22 by 11 zero offset wheel. It tucks real nice. It's not wide. And then I'm running 37 inch Nitto trail grapplers. So 37, 13 and a half, 22. It's about time for some new tires. I'm coming up on that here.
Those tires, I would not say lend themselves really well to that smooth ride. But like you said, you're not building the truck for a smooth ride. You're building the truck to kind of just be a badass truck.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I have plans in the future I thought about, bringing it back down to reality and doing a reverse level and doing like a street truck look. I mean, that's still TBD. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So who knows?
I like it. Okay.
But,
and then this is another big common thing that I think I see more with the 4th gen Cummins than I really recognize in some of the older models is headlights. Everybody has to upgrade their lights in these trucks. Did you not like them from the factory? Is it really dark where you're at?
So it gets pretty dark where I'm at. I did have to upgrade the headlights. I did do the Diode Dynamics HID kit for the projectors. I read a lot of terrible things about the LEDs for projectors, that they just didn't shine good enough. But I got the Diode Dynamics. I think it's the 6000K HID low beams, and I've had no problems with them until recently. And it's not the Diode Dynamics fault by any means. It's my fault. I tore the headlights open and replaced the reflector in there to make it clear, and do the Diode Dynamics clear white running board to make it kind of different. And that was my first time ever doing that. So it was a nerve-wracking process, and it's finally in the butt because I just drove through a huge storm like 2 days ago, and I got water in my driver's side headlights. So now I'm kind of in search of headlights, and trust me, I do not want to pay for those because I think it's ridiculous what they cost these days. But
it's crazy. I know
we'll get there.
When I first started with Duramaxtuner, they had a 3rd gen Cummins, beautiful truck, but they had done I think back then people were just getting into LED headlights, and they were awesome. I mean, they were so bright, but you couldn't, it was high beams or nothing. So it was high beams or pitch black when you drove at night. And so you'd be driving and just everybody you cross traffic with, it's just flashing their lights at you to shut your high beams off. And you're like, well, it's this or I'm ghosting you, and I'm going to run you over. So like, I get it. But yeah, headlights have come a long way. There are some cool options out there. I always tease guys about their headlights, but I get it. It makes the truck look cool. I understand.
It definitely sets it, like, gives it a whole new look from the front end of it, per se.
That's it. All right, man. Well, we talked wheels, tires, lift. Let's get under the hood. I know you got a tuner on it. I know you got the intake on it. What else have you done?
So I did the 2nd gen swap from Worley Custom Fab. You guys talk about them all the time, and man, second to none when it comes to customer service. They are freaking awesome. But for the setup, I just went with a simple, I guess you could say, 2nd gen swap. I did the 467 8390 turbo with the Steed Speed manifold, and then I did the 4-inch Banks Monster Ram exhaust, intake horn. And then since I was in there and I had everything torn apart on that side of the motor, I went and did the fleece coolant bypass. And about 2 months ago, I did the ARP 625. So it's a pretty nice little setup under there.
Hell yeah, man. It sounds like you've really been working at it. Have you had the truck on the dyno?
I have, and I was pretty disappointed because I don't think the people that had the dyno knew exactly what they were doing. And they told me 482 is what I had at the wheel, and I'm not buying that for a second. I'm
on a stock trans, depending on where your tune was set up, right? Because I'm catching this correctly, still on stock transmission?
I have 100% stock transmission, and that was before I did the gear swap too, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Well, test window is probably more your concern there. So
yeah.
Loading a diesel truck compared to Loading a gas truck, a little bit different. Also, it's not.
See, they didn't have a loaded dyno either. Their dyno wasn't a one with a load or an eddy brake on it, and I asked them about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's why I'm just like, I just don't know if it's correct or
you
not.
get some variations. In my opinion, we would not generally take a stock 68 RFE past that. Like 480s, like really, you're getting the edge of it, man. Like much further past that, and it's just a timer. It's just it's a countdown.
And I know that. Like, yeah, hopefully we'll talk about the trans stuff later, but definitely scary for me. It's a ticking time bomb. Sure. I know.
Well, let's get into it. So here we are. So 68 RFE, you only have a couple of options. With Allison's, I feel like every time you throw a rock, you find another shop that claims to be Allison experts. In reality, hey, we build Allison's over at Duramaxtuner. WC Fab builds Allison's. I know there's a lot of guys out there who build Allison's. We're all using the same or almost the exact same kits that we're buying from manufacturers. So a lot of times it just has to come down with craftsmanship and availability. Like those are really your big questions, right? But for a 100%. Cummins, there's a lot smaller of a market. And then for a 68 RFE, there's an even smaller portion of the market that's out there. A lot of times, depending on what you're going to do with it, I know we generally recommend guys to do like valve body upgrade and a torque converter, call it a day. If you're not going to go over 550 and you want to just hang out around that number, why go spend the astronomical amount on a full on build, right? Because they're outrageous. I mean, they're it's a very sizable investment. I don't want to say they're outrageous. It's not that it's not worth it. It's just that it is expensive. That's just the reality of it. But most guys, honestly, that are going to be daily driving and want to have a quick hit here and there at the stoplight, and that's most. I'm trying to think through who wouldn't need that. And really, I guess if you're going to be racing or sled pulling in a very competitive way, okay, yeah, you probably want a full build. But most everybody else, I think, is going to be just fine with that power level.
And that's one thing I did talk to some guys over at RevMax, and we talked about a few things when it came to the 68. And then also there's a guy here local in Oklahoma who is their company's DRT Transmissions. And he's pretty much a good guy when it comes to 68s. So I've ran a lot of questions by them, and there's a lot of options I've looked at, whether it's a full built transmission or, like you said, just a valve body torque converter, a billet flex plate if I wanted to even go that route. So those are options. I'm still in the discussion part and research phase of transmission stuff, because I know she's a big truck. She's on 37s. It's not like it's going to be winning any drag races, but at the same time, if I hit it, or if I want to punch it, I don't have to have so much worry about just having 6 neutrals. You know what I mean?
I get it 100%, man. Yeah. And use and abuse is going to play how much money do you need to spend. Because like I said, I mean, even with the 37s, most reasonable drivers, if you're not riding around in the big tune all the time and you're not going to stomp on it after, and really beat the piss out of it, it's like, well, the main places that it fails is that it doesn't have enough line pressure to hold the clutch packs. So once you crank up the line pressure, usually you're good. Yeah. The next weakest point's the torque converter. So jumping into a triple disc billet torque converter, which very rare we would buy anything else besides that. But yeah, so you jump into an aftermarket torque converter. Now you got the 2 main points. The next thing that's going to fail, most likely going to be your clutches slipping. At that point, we're in a full build. We got to open the whole thing up. We got to pull the whole thing out and open the whole thing up. We got to empty all the clutch packs. We got new clutch packs, new steels, all the way through. So it's just a very different set of circumstances.
Yeah, and like you said, it's exactly. It's like you can spend, let's say, like $2,000 on like a valve body and a RevMax, or you can go full on build after a certain extent. And my truck's pretty low mileage. I don't beat on it, because I know where I'm at. I know that it's the Achilles heel of this truck, so I'm going to try to have a longevity of it so I can still have a daily driver. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So
cool. Erik, it's always so much fun having guys on the show and talking about their trucks. And one of the things I always like to ask, though, is what was maybe one of the challenging things that you ran into since you've owned the truck? What's been kind of the hurdle that you had to overcome?
Well, I'd say say a hurdle is, I don't know. It's just I do a lot of research before I buy anything. You know, I'm brand new to the diesel game. When I say brand new, like 3 years, right? I've had this truck, and this is the one that I've actually started putting performance stuff into. So the hurdles I've had is just trying to find the right product, I guess you could say, that fits my needs. Because you see on the forums, everybody knows everything about everything, and they want to preach what they did to their truck as being gospel. But there's quite a few guys I follow on, the YouTube scene, and there's a couple people on Facebook I message back and forth a lot. So biggest hurdle, I would say, just picking the right parts, and so far I think I've done a great job with what I got and for the expectations of it.
Well, that's awesome, man. I think that's good advice too. Take your time, do your research, know what's coming up. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Some people I like to give a shout out to, first and foremost, I'll say WC Fab. They've been awesome guys to help whenever I had questions about doing the second gen swap. And I'll go into a list of other people that I have that I want to thank, and it's just a small list, but some of them I talk to, some of them I don't. So for a lot of people I've learned from, Greg A., obviously the Cummins God, we all know about him. Turbo Tom, to me he's a real dude. He puts good information out there, and he's very relatable. And another guy, Cam Piggott, he's over at Everything Diesel. That guy, does everything in his driveway. Great guy, answers all my questions, and formed a pretty good friendship through this. I just started a YouTube channel as well, so just trying to put out good quality information for people that are trying to learn, I guess, about the diesel performance scene or diesel truck scene in general. So,
sure. Where can people find your channel?
My channel is going to be OKC_6.7. And that's also the same for my Instagram. So go over there, and if you guys like what you see, hit that subscribe button. More subscribers I get, the more content I can put out.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, I'm so glad that we had a chance to have you on, Erik. I know I'll be subscribing to the channel. Guys, for today, this has been Paul Wilson. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, I'm going to mock Paul. It's fine.
And welcome to, yeah.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Fuck.